How are you? Welcome to my kitchen. I have just discovered a culture, a cuisine, a whole style of cooking that I knew nothing about as little as a month ago. It's the cooking of Poland. I've discovered that because I'm hanging around Chicago, as you know, these days. And the other day I was in a neighborhood. I walked for 3 blocks and no one would speak English to me, only Polish. And the restaurants and the sausage shops were simply incredible. Poland, you know, is a very, very old nation. And the fact that America has just heard about it, by that I mean we've just begun talking about it in the last few years, is really tragic. But until the election of the good Bishop of Rome, John Paul II, and until the people of Poland began striking and the labor unions, the whole works, we knew nothing about Poland. So today I want you to learn something about Poland through their cuisine. And it's a very rich cuisine with royalty that moved in and out of the Polish throne from the rest of Europe and bringing with them all kinds of new flavors that the Poles then incorporated into their own cooking. And the Poles in turn gave back to the visiting royalty sauerkrauts and sour creams and pickles and heavy, heavy, heavy rich food. One of the heaviest things I've ever seen in my life, which really turns out pretty well, is a pierogi. It's a dumpling raised to glory, and I want to start today with the Polish dumpling, the pierogi. First of all, the dough is very, very simple. I've made an egg batter for you. Let me show you what kind of thickness I want here. There it is. I've made an egg batter for you of a cup of flour, 1 egg, 1/4 of a teaspoon of salt, and 4 tablespoons of water, and it will give you this lovely, lovely diet dough. I rolled mine out on an Italian spaghetti machine. Do you have one of those? It's a snap to use, and I rolled my dough out very, very quickly on this machine. Putting it on number 5, if you have an atlas at home, it'll work well for you, and you'll get a nice thin dough. And I'll show you how to cut these. I'm using a jelly jar. You can use a dumpling cutter. You can use anything you want, but we want them. I don't know how big that is. How big is that? It's about 3 inches in diameter, I think, isn't it? About right. There we go. We'll cut 3 of these, and while I'm showing you how to fold these, I want to get a filling going. And the filling that I'm going to make today for you, well, there are 3 fillings really, but my favorite one consists of the following. We want a little butter in a hot frying pan. Yes, it's going to be tons of butter and sour cream today. We're going to have a field day. Butter in a frying pan, and we're going to add some sauerkraut to this. And just do this by taste. You know what I mean? Some sauerkraut, and we'll brown that for a bit, along with some Polish mushrooms. Now, we can't get Polish mushrooms in this country unless you want to pay, I don't know, $60 a pound. But the closest thing that you find, and it is a dried mushroom we want, the closest thing that you can find is available in most fancy delis and import shops, good food import shops, and it's simply called a dried mushroom. It's common in this country. A lot of these come from Argentina. Some of them are domestic. But when you soak them, they turn into the most heavenly, rich, you see? This is about the same amount as in the first bowl, you see? Check the size here. These things really swell up. Look at, you see? You have a marvelous mixture of mushrooms. So if you're paying $10 or $12, maybe $15 a pound, it's all right. It's all right. You'll get there. Because in the long run, you see, they're very rich and rather inexpensive. I'm going to grab a small handful here, 3 or 4 nice mushrooms, chop them up, and put them in my sauerkraut for a sauerkraut and mushroom-filled pierogi. Absolute heaven. I promise you, these dishes are just terrific. In they go to the frying pan. We want to simmer these for a bit. You don't want to quite dry this out, but you certainly want to brown it a bit, you see. And I'm also going to add to that just a pinch of sugar. Where's my sugar bowl? I'm using a little bit of brown sugar, just a smidgen. There we go. And remember, we have quite a bit of butter in there to be very, very rich. And I also want to add a bit of pepper. And we'll saute that till it browns down a bit, and we'll have a great filling. Let me show you what it looks like when we're finished. You can see the difference in color right away. You see how obvious that is? Now you see what I've done? It doesn't take long. Okay? So now we need to grab a dumpling, and I'll roll him up. Pull him off. I'm using a marble board here. It works great. That was a little ill-shaped, isn't it? I pulled on the dough too hard and stretched it out of whack, but that's right. Just put a smidgen inside the dough, and then you bring the sides up and pinch it all the way around, and you have a pierogi. Yes, you can do this with a wonton skin. It was nice of you to ask. As a matter of fact, I did some to try. I'll see how they hold up today. There's one pierogi filled with a mixture of sauerkraut, imported mushrooms soaked, dried mushrooms soaked, or domestic if you find them. Then I added a bit of pepper, lots of butter, and a tiny pinch of sugar to make a sauerkraut and mushroom filling. The second one that I have for you is made of egg yolk. Well, I'll give you the whole recipe. You have a half a pound of cottage cheese, and I drained it very carefully. You don't want it to be too wet, you see. And I added 1 egg yolk, and a teaspoon of melted butter. Just pour it right in there, and a tiny pinch of salt. And it's not sweet, and it's not dry. It's very, very rich. And again, just fold him over. You see? All right. Now the third one that I'm going to make for you, and I've already made a big plate of these. The third one I'm going to make for you sounds a little strange. It's a potato-filled dumpling. Now, if you're Jewish, you're going to say, good Lord, is he giving the Poles credit for the knish? No, I'm not giving them credit, but there's a great similarity here. I'll give you the recipe for this one, too. This is a mashed potato. It's already cooked up. And then I've sautéed a quarter of a yellow onion and stirred that into my mashed potato. 1 potato, 1/4 of a yellow onion, sautéed and stirred into the potato. And you'll notice, I think you can see the spots in here. There's cottage cheese in there, a couple tablespoons of cottage cheese, drained, of course, and some salt and pepper. Whoops, I think I may have to pack that one down. You've got to be careful when you roll these, or you'll get a pillow of air in there. You'll see you'll get a pocket of air, and then when you put it in boiling water, the thing's going to blow up like the Hindenburg, and it'll be just tragic. All right, here they go. Let me put some in boiling water, and when they come to the top, when they begin to float, you simply give them another 5 minutes, and they're all done. Got that? Put them in the pot, and when they come to the surface, when they all begin to float, I better put some salt in that water too. When they all begin to float, let them cook another 5 minutes, and we're all set. So let me add some more pierogi. Here's some more cheese pierogi. Aren't these gorgeous things? Look at that one's floating already. Can you see? This little rascal's out. Get down there. Which means, of course, that I had a pocket of air in there. They should hit the bottom with a boom. I have a friend here in my kitchen who's Polish, and we were just talking about how heavy a pierogi could be. He remembers from his childhood, I'm sure, someone who used to make these things as heavy as lead. And I'm afraid that you could do that too unless you're careful. You want to roll the dough quite thin. They're not to be heavy at all. They're to be light and fluffy. That was the sauerkraut one. And the cheese is in there. We have one more coming. Whoops, excuse me, I was wrong. Here's the mushroom and sauerkraut. I want to get them all in the pot, and we'll get them boiling, and then we can go on to another dish here. You notice I put a little flour on my plate, you see, so that they wouldn't stick, and then I've covered them with saran wrap so that I could make several different kinds without any difficulty. And for heaven's sakes, have all of this stuff ready before your guests show up. It's just awful to be out in the kitchen telling them, oh, we're going to eat well, maybe Tuesday. You know, don't do that to your guests. It's not fair. I'm even upset when it happens to my children, you know, when we all come into the kitchen when we're ready. Here are a few that I did with wonton skins. You remember wonton skin, you buy in any supermarket now, and it's a square noodle so that your pierogi is going to look like this, you see. You moisten, let me show you how to do this. You moisten the edge of the wonton skin with water on just one, two sides that join, thusly. There we go. Oh, that sauerkraut and mushroom is cooking away here in my right nostril, and it's just heavenly. Then we'll put in a bit of filling. Let's do a potato one here. You see, I have 2 sides wet, and then we'll bring it over and seal it very, very carefully, being very careful to push out all of the air, or the thing will just swell up like mad, and you don't want that. There it is, you see? Let's put in a couple of these, too. These are both cheese, all of it on this plate. Using a wonton skin, and we'll be able to judge the difference when we have a tasting, a formal pierogi tasting, in a few minutes. All right, they'll all float in a minute, and we'll be set. Let's turn off my other filling here, and we're going to go on with some rather heavy dishes. At least I think they're heavy, and they're great. They're very substantial cooking. One of the other things that we've learned about in our culture is something that we really haven't learned about. That is to say, we think we know something and we really don't. It's called a kielbasa or a Polish sausage. And it's not at all what we think it is. The Polish sausage, I went to a Polish sausage factory to gather a few tidbits for you. You know what the term kielbasa means? In Polish, it simply means sausage. In our country, Polish sausage, or the term kielbasa, refers to one kind, namely a very medium coarse grind garlic sausage with a bit of pepper in it and sometimes some allspice. You know the one. It looks like this, you see? You see? You've seen this. Buy it in any supermarket. This one, however, was made by a neighbor down the street. This one by a sausage factory on West Michigan. This one is a different one from the same factory, and all of these are also Polish sausages. This whole platter. This one, for instance, is called a Krakow. That's where Pope John Paul was cardinal. Remember, he was Bishop of Krakow, Archbishop of Krakow. I'm not sure. He was one of the two when he was cardinal. before he was elected to the papacy. This is his village sausage. It's heavenly. It's big chunks of ham in it. This is a blood sausage with barley in it. Can you see the chunks of barley? This is so good. And here's a thin, dried Polish sausage. It's heavenly. And then this is their regular Polish. I walked out of there with the bags, my arms were just incredibly heavy. I was buying all kinds of sausages. And I've learned a great deal. But I have a recipe for you that you can make at home if you can't get good Polish from a professional sausage maker. Here's a recipe that's very, very simple, and you can make them in little plastic seal bags. You know what I mean? I'll give you the recipe now. I've got 1.5 pounds of good pork. See, and I've ground this up. To that, I'm going to add, I suppose 6, 7 cloves of garlic. Oh, you can't put too much garlic in Polish sausage. That's just impossible. There's about 3 or 4 already here. These are rather small. I'm going to put in a couple more. And then we need an entire tablespoon of black pepper. Now, you know that I tell you every time we're together, for heaven's sakes, don't let someone else grind your pepper. You don't know what they're going to put in it. So I've already ground mine, so you'll forgive me if you don't see my pepper mill this time. I've already ground it up here for you. I want a tablespoon of black pepper. That's plenty. And then we want a bit of salt, probably a teaspoon or so. That should do us. And the kick here, the strange flavor, is allspice. And we want just a teaspoon. You don't want to know it's there. It's just to be supportive. Just a half teaspoon is plenty. And finally, 1/3 cup of water to make a saline solution from that salt, you see. And that will preserve the sausage. You want the recipe again now? We have 1.5 pounds of pork. We have 1/2 teaspoon of allspice. We have a tablespoon of black pepper, 6 cloves of garlic, a little bit of salt. Now then, if you want to have a smoked sausage, or at least taste like a smoked sausage, let me show you a secret. I have here a product that is called a liquid smoke. And if you put in just a dash of this, so, just a little bit, it'll give you a very nice flavor, and will taste much more like the kind of Polish sausage that you're used to from the market. There it is. Now, we'll mold those into little cakes. Get my hands cleaned off here, and I'm going to put them in seal bags, those little plastic bags that you close up with an electric heater, you know what I mean? And then you can boil in these. It works great because what we're doing is making a skin, you see, for the sausage this way. So we'll mold one of these into a sausage shape. Oh, maybe that's a little large. The point here is to boil these ahead of time. Cook them ahead of time, and then you can just warm them up very easily. Whoops, excuse me, I've got to check my pierogi. Good heavens. They're just jumping all around. I think they're about done. How much fun. They look great. Let's give them another. They're all at the top now, so let's give them another minute or so. Anyhow, you put the sausage, you see, into these little bags. And then later on, you put this in a heater, you see, one of those seal jobbers. I've got one over here. I've done a whole bunch of these. And then cook them for about 35 minutes in boiling water. Then you're ready to go. You can open them up and use them for sandwiches. You can use them for salads. You can use them for all sorts of good things. Let me show you what they look like.